Are the rest of you as tired as I am already? And I was happy to see Hawkins initially, hearing him talk about the local wide receiver workshop that he participated in.
Yeah. I'm glad it was initially you were happy to see me. That seemed like a kind of a undershot there. I mean, it was. I participated in a wide receiver workshop. I'm not saying I still got it. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying I don't.
Like you were
still
doing the
have it.
drills?
I did do the drills.
You guys need quarterbacks? I'll go over there.
We needed quarterbacks. We actually were struggling to find
You need
quarterbacks.
to throw actual footballs or imaginary ones. If it's imaginary ones, it's dude's Joe Montana.
We had a 5-star. What's his name? Dia Bell. You heard of him? 5-star Rajah Bell's son. Did you know that?
No, I Venmoed him once.
Did you? What for an
official visit
to put Miami in his top 30? Is that what that was?
I did not, just for the record.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah. Well, they had a 5-star quarterback. A lot of great receivers were there. Tyreek Hill was there. Jamar Chase was there. Jerry Jeudy, T. Higgins. Who else? Elijah Moore. It was like 13 or so NFL receivers. It was hosted by Chad Ochocinco. I want to get into it, but it was a lot of fun, Dan.
You were showing everyone pictures of you running routes.
I didn't show everyone pictures of me running routes. I showed them videos of me in the background of other really good receivers running routes.
I saw a photo of you catching a ball, jumping up in the air. You certainly participated in the routes. You were showing me the photos of you in midair catching a football.
I feel like somebody else showed you that, which also makes me feel pretty good that it's going around. But yeah, did I jump? How was the vertical? Be honest. Did I look high?
You looked high.
Thank you. You know,
how was the landing?
It's the wide receiver way.
How was the landing? Because as we approach 40 and whatnot, they say the landing's the harder part.
That's me in the background.
Well,
I will say
we're not on video yet.
Well, it's a difficult thing to ask him about because this is very visual. And man, look at that quad is popping.
Look in your mind's eye and imagine me in the background, listeners. I would say this was like 4 days ago, and I am very much still sore. And I only participated in maybe 40% of the workout that I did do that day.
So you aren't quite ready for flag football in the Olympics the way you thought you were.
No, but I will say it did give me a glimmer of hope. Because even the current guys, I would do my part of the drill, and they go, ooh, like it was like damn,
you still got it.
like
that's good.
Hey, you can move. That's crazy. I don't see guys with gray beards do that type of thing. And
I don't see you do it with a gray beard either.
Hey man, it made me feel good. That's all I'm saying. You know. Those are noobs we're talking about. This ain't Gen Pop. These are the best of the best.
I mean, you mentioned Elijah Moore.
Did you guys see what he did as his route? Because this is the move of the old wide receiver. He did the route, but it was just hands and shoulders.
Also, it's the route is running through your whole body. Okay. So
you're saying these other receivers were amazed at how you moved your shoulders off the line.
I have till the end of the segment to take something back. I just noticed Elijah Moore signed with the Buffalo Bills. He's gonna be fine.
He's gonna be more than fine.
Yeah, he's gonna be all right.
Absolutely.
He can really move those shoulders.
Oh, come.
Stop that. Stop that. Stop that. Yeah. I hear him chat to the noise. Move too quick, can't stop for the talking. I hear him chat with the walking. Just too sharp with the prize. White girls better tell me I'm awesome. Yeah. Hot like fire on the pan. If you wanna touch my please use caution. Cold like 0 degrees. I'm out the cage, gotta let out the beast. Revolutionary, gotta let out the streets. Locked in a cage, I'ma let out the sheets. We came for one, motherfucker, get my piece. We take the west side, take on the east. I'ma put them in the cage, never let out the. Yeah, I hear him chat to the noise. Move too quick, can't stop for the talking. I hear him chat with the boys. Not so tough, but mans keep walking. Yeah, just too sharp with the prize. White girls better tell me I'm awesome. Yeah, hot like fire on the pan. If you wanna touch me, please use caution. Stop that. Stop that. Stop that.
Mike Ryan is alleging, Andrew Hawkins, that Tyreek Hill at this wide receiver camp that you were at, that he has seen video that he had to double check because he thought it had been sped up for just Tyreek Hill, that everyone else looked slow in the video, and that Tyreek Hill's he was claiming that AI had changed the speed of Tyreek Hill compared to everyone else at this wide receiver workshop that you did.
If it's AI, it's in its legs, because I was there in person, and I'm telling you, I don't know if I've seen very many humans run at his speed. And the impressive part is not just his speed, because there's been fast guys, and you're sometimes in football, especially in the NFL, you do come around guys that even by NFL standards are a different level of speed. His ability to stop at that speed is what makes him truly an anomaly. He's 31 years old. Now,
people don't talk about that enough.
I couldn't agree more. Listen, he ran a 10-10 in the 100, right? A 10.10, which is elite speed in general. And how I always look at it is like there's tiers. If your receivers run like faster than a 10, or even probably anything below that, you're probably not going to be good at football, because you're not going to be able to stop your body. And that's what
Tony is
all
looking
about.
at how he stops there, and it's not possible to cover any of that, obviously.
It's not only that. He stops on a dime. The quarterback threw it over his head,
Bro,
to the back.
It was like...
It was a terrible throw. You should have hit me up.
These quarterbacks were so nervous, though. You got to understand.
That's the thing.
Like,
you got to go in. You got to own the place. You're the quarterback.
You
You're the guy that makes things happen.
No. He has the kind of speed that flusters you. Like, oh my gosh, am I going to be too late?
You don't get that. You put it out in front of him so he can go get it. That's what quarterbacks
Bro,
do.
shut up.
Okay, so look, I think Tyreek Hill has a big year, because to run that fast, period, is crazy. To run that fast at 31 is insane. You can tell he's been on the track this entire offseason, keeping his top-line speed. But the fact that he can stop at that speed is like, even by the NFL guys that were there was everybody else, and then there was Tyreek.
Who's the worst stopper in the league? Like, who's really fast but can't stop well?
I mean, those guys
probably an offensive lineman.
Those guys aren't in the league, Chris. Like that gets weeded
He's saying
out.
he's the best stopper, so I'm just like, is there a receiver out there that like that guy could stop better?
Yeah, like Mike Vitar in D2.
Anybody that says like, oh, this is the track guy, or the guys that in the NFL were like, oh, he was really fast in track. He hasn't, so much speed doesn't translate. It's probably why.
You're not of the belief that he could actually beat Noah Lyles in a race, are you? Because that's been canceled now. That was supposed to be in California a month ago, and it was canceled. You don't believe that he could beat an Olympic gold medal sprinter, do you?
At what distance? I like him in the 60.
Well, I thought they weren't going to do 100 meters, right? I think they were going to do 60.
I like him in 60. I don't like him in 80. 80 to 100, I like Noah. Anything below 60 is Tyreek running away. 60 is like the distance where Noah's stride kicks in, because he's not a great starter. And Tyreek is explosive off the ball. But the stride will start to kick in around 45 meters, and it gets really close at the 60 meter
you
mark.
can speak, right? When you're watching at this wide receiver workshop, one of the things that's unusual about Tyreek Hill, I understand that people know the speed, obviously, but people that height generally can't play that sport, because you did, but you're an outlier. He's an outlier, but he also kind of has, because your quickness was amazing. His quickness is amazing, and also his physical size at that height feels and seems like he's uncommonly strong at that height.
He is very strong, and I think the game has changed too. Like when I was coming out, that wasn't a thing, especially because even he is like an inch and a half, 2 inches taller than me. But it wasn't a thing when I was coming out. I think now you are seeing a lot more shorter receivers. Like even at that workout, Elijah Moore was there. He's a shorter receiver. Tank Dell was there, shorter receiver. Xavier Restrepo was there. He's not the biggest guy. But I think it's because the wide receiver position, your job is, yes, to catch the football. Equal to that is your ability to separate, right? Now, if you're a big receiver, you have a big catch radius, and it makes it easy on quarterbacks to say, hey, okay, someone's attached to you or not that far away. I put it in this vicinity. You have long arms. You go get it, right? Or if you're really, really fast, if I give you enough time, your stride kicks in, you will be out in front of you.
Like Tony said,
back.
just throw it out.
You put it out in front of him.
Put it out in front.
Get it,
Just,
Yes,
he was
Tony
helping
gets it.
you.
He gets it more than probably anyone I've ever talked to.
Thank you, buddy.
Right?
Again, if you guys need somebody next time, I'm there. Just call me.
It's done. It's a
right.
done deal. You will be there. And then the other piece of that now is like if you're a smaller receiver and your ability to stop on a dime and ramp up the speed faster than everybody else creates more separation. So for Tyreek Hill, yes, he's smaller in stature, but the throws are as easy as they can be because he has the ability to stop faster than you and speed up faster than you. So no one's ever attached to him when he's making catches.
Can I ask you a question? I'm sorry, Dan, but since we're at this wide receiver symposium now,
Yeah.
there's a couple wide
Hosted
receivers.
by Chad Ochocinco.
There's a couple wide receivers in college that I wanted to ask your opinion about because people were talking in high school about Jeremiah Smith and his ceiling.
Yeah.
And I've never really heard around a wide receiver in high school people chatter with conviction, this guy could be the greatest of all time.
Yeah.
He has all the physical gifts. He's got the speed. He's got the breaks. He's got the hands. And Williams out of Alabama has body control that, even though he doesn't have the size of Randy Moss, has the body control of Randy Moss. And I would ask you, if you could have something, understanding that pretty much everybody outside of Xavier Restrepo that plays that position is fast, right? Fast for humans.
Yep.
Maybe not fast for NFL players. What is the physical trait that you would want outside of speed? Is it the ability to just catch and be dependable? Is it body control? Is there a singular physical trait that you would lump on top of the speed to take you to that next tier?
There's not a single physical trait, and I think that's the hard part about wide receiver. I do think if I was going to pick one and rank it above everything else, it would be body control, but the given has to be you can catch to a certain degree. And some people's ability for hand-eye coordination and, grip of the football, size of the hand are going to vary.
Can that be a learned behavior? Because in college, Andre Johnson wasn't super dependable with hands, and then he became a very dependable receiver in the pros.
You got to know what you're looking at. You got to know, what somebody's actual ability is and how much of it is maximized. Now, if you can't catch, and there are people like this that literally it won't matter how much work, I can tell you exactly how to do it. You can rep it. You can
They
get
get weeded out, though. They never
They
get.
get weeded. Well,
they don't get to the
Brandon
pros.
Marshall struggled with that throughout his career.
You got to know if it's a concentration issue or if it's an actual ability for your eyes and hands to be on the same page, which is a thing. And typically, those kind of guys, like he's super fast. He can great body control, all these things, but he just, you know what they are? Cornerbacks. So 9 times out of 10, the cornerbacks are very aggressive and they are fast and all the things, but they can't catch. That's why they're on that side of the ball.
Is that the hardest position to play in maybe professional sports outside of quarterback because of all the processing that you have to do? But I look at that video, and we could put it up again, of Tyreek Hill coming out of his breaks, and I just imagine what it's like for someone that is tasked with defending him, not knowing where he's going to go, and it seems impossible.
I think it is the hardest position to be born good at because it is hard to guard another really, really fast human being going backwards. But cornerback is actually easy if you are born with the ability because receiver has a bunch of skill. You can be very fast, quick, great hands. In today's game, if you have not built the skill that it needs to play wide receiver, you will not be successful. Cornerback is easier because as long as you're athletic and you're aggressive and you're not scared to hit, I can put you at corner. You do really well. Same with running back. I can give you the ball, and whether we've gone through, positional skill and say, hey, make people miss and go score, and if you have the natural ability, you'll be able to pick it up. Receiver, there's a lot of factors that go into it, so it makes it a little harder.
You can speak to this better than most. I watch what Tyreek Hill is doing there, which is just very common, very simple. Every day for 15 years, he's probably been doing that kind of route running. And what I think to myself as he's doing it is, man, those feet are going to be a mess by the time that dude gets to 50 years old because of how much effort all of that requires. And you were the similar kind of roots and adventure to get to the NFL. Your feet are in what kind of condition, given that you had to be better at cuts than other people?
Tell us about your feet.
Yeah, so my feet, for those at home listening, my daughters, when I take my socks off, won't come near me because they look so bad.
Go!
It's like deformed toes. Are we talking
like
about LeBron, the nails?
It's like the size 10 version of a LeBron foot. Wow. All the toes kind of come together. They're all like all damaged, like nail beds. My ankles have like the surgery marks all over them.
Are
I
your
walk
feet
down steps
better
like
or
a
worse?
giant.
Are your feet
Like
better or worse than Greg Cody's right there that are on the screen? I've maintained that those are a demon's feet or perhaps the devil's feet.
Well, let's break it down. They're way too veiny. That's an issue out the gate.
Well, he went demon, and then he was like, "Well, it could be the top of the
It
line
could be
for
the
hell."
king, right? I was thinking to myself that all of the demons have a certain kind of feet, but they respect that demon's feet because it's the worst of all the feet. So I promoted your father to having the devil's feet because he had the worst feet in hell.
Well, like most feet look like an L. His kind of looks like a hockey stick, right? Like from the ankle to the foot, it's like there's no like deviation in the joint area, so it just kind of goes to the tip.
There's a lot of ankle going on.
There's a lot of ankle. There's way too much like filler at the side of the foot. Like it shouldn't be that thick. There's way too many veins. A foot that thick shouldn't be able to see so many veins. And then the big toenail shape is like it comes to a point, and that's where the demon thing kind of pops in because it looks like. The big toe has horns.
Yes.
And so there's a lot going on.
Second and third toe are like the same size.
Okay,
it's
but
weird.
I'd like you to understand that if I was in prison and I had only your father's big toe, that would be confiscated by the guards as an illegal weapon that I
You've naturally snuck a shank into prison.
That I could absolutely kill other prisoners and run the yard if I just had that big toe in my pocket, that sharpened big toe. It is disgusting. Put it back up there a second because I just want the audio audience, which might not be seeing this, to understand that I believe that Greg Cody is so unhealthy that right foot, that's as low as it goes coming to flat on the floor.
I was going to say.
I'm saying I'm saying the foot doesn't work right.
He walks like the Beast in Beauty and the Beast.
that foot does not work right, and that's as low as his heel comes to the asphalt right there because the five toes have just lapsed into rigor mortis.
Yeah, that's you can tell he has a good foot and a bad foot. Like his left foot is clearly his like good foot. He'll take that sock off, whereas right one looks like he has a rubber band double knotted right under his knee, and all the veins are just rushing. The blood is just sitting there.
Hawk, if you look, if we zoom out, what do you think he's doing right there, right? Because you only see him on the asphalt. Do you know what he's doing there?
It's a great question.
Washing a car of some sort? I don't know.
Maybe.
He is. You're going to be shocked by my answer.
I feel like that's a hose right there.
You're going to be shocked by my answer right there, and you wouldn't have guessed it.
Should we give him the answer? Or should we show the picture in full? Do we have the panda?
I want to just give him the answer because I could give him a million guesses and he would not answer what I'm about to say, which is what Greg Cody is doing right there is no lie, frying a turkey.
Okay. That's It would have took me a while to get there. And frying a turkey barefoot on the concrete.
In his garage, in front of his garage. But I think
I don't want to typecast, but
the other thing that Hawk doesn't know, Tony, is I saw the glazed look on Hawk's face as you guys made the comment to the people in our audience who may remember the day that Tony told us about trying out for FIU football. Mike Ryan made the joke, and it's not a joke, that Tony would throw you imaginary footballs at this wide receiver camp because as our resident non-NFL division best football player on our crew, Tony's qualifications as our best football player is that he tried out at FIU for quarterback, but in the tryout, they didn't let him use footballs. So he was just dropping back and throwing
dropping dimes.
All right. Well,
so here's the story, Hawk. I'll make it condensed.
Give me the story because I don't want to.
I'll make it extremely condensed for you. So with the walk-on tryouts, what they didn't do is allow us to use footballs because that would take away practice days from the actual team.
Don't want to do that.
So what they
How
did
do you
is
assess a walk-on. Like, let me look at this
my
guy.
point exactly. Mm-hmm. So I think they just did it off 40 times, which is whatever. Neither here nor there. But
because everybody wants a quarterback with a fast 40. But go ahead.
Go ahead. So I was doing my 3-step, 5-step. I was doing a quick step, like on a quick slant. So I was working those, but the receivers were getting thrown tennis balls from the wide receiver coach, and then I had to like stop back and throw. But like
nice form.
Nothing. Like I had to throw nothing. So it was
Not nice
difficult
form,
because of the fact that they didn't let us use the balls because they would have taken the balls from the team.
Yeah, I get it. That for sure. We can't take away from the actual football players, to give you a shot at being one of the scout players. But I will say that's not a good sign that they saw you without a football and didn't think you had the ability to do so. But you definitely can assess a quarterback without a football. Did you play quarterback in high school?
Yeah.
Give me your stats. Give me your stat line your senior year.
Oh no, I didn't play my senior year.
Okay.
Because I
that
ended
old
up
tale.
I ended up playing basketball. I left football to play basketball.
Were you licking your hands before the
Okay.
fake ball was
before
hanging?
the imaginary football, did you lick your fingers?
No.
Why didn't you go for tight end?
I should have probably.
Yeah.
Like Buck Ortega.
You might be in the NFL had you
If
been
I would have
like,
buckled down in high school and played, like
Here
I
we
could
go.
have, I could have
Don't
done,
feed this.
I could have done
Why
something.
did you do that?
Here we
buckle
go.
buckle down and played is a crazy sentence.
You
Like you
started
can
it.
buckle down if you're already playing and be like, you know what, I got to take this serious.
If I played tight end.
In order to, if you had to buckle down to even
Remember,
sign up,
I was playing quarterback. If I would have buckled down and played tight end from the jump,
you didn't play
instead
your
of
senior
quarterback.
year.
Correct, because I ended up
Because he's a
staying
hooper.
to play basketball.
And 10-day Tony. It was
Okay.
the right
The
decision.
The moniker's the reason, yeah.
The
Okay,
right
10-day
decision.
Tony.
His shot is dripping wet. But
Okay.
I do see the point about being a tight end. The league is chock full of guys that have made the switch from quarterback to tight end at a very successful rate. Guys that never played tight end, even in college, go into the league and all of a sudden are successful. And he's got a pretty decent tight end build.
he's got a good build for it. He hit the weight room. He'd probably be super jacked. He's probably pretty athletic since he's a basketball player. I love to convert basketball players who have the
tight end.
size to tight end because it's another one of those positions that we can get you going relatively
Just
fast.
to be clear, we're making the allegation here that if Tony had buckled down,
and signed up. Yep.
Well, again, sign up wasn't the issue.
I'm
Sign up
not
wasn't the issue.
finished. We're making the allegation here that if Tony had buckled down, he'd be the immortal Mark Andrews. That he'd be running through a secondary.
Buck Ortega.
He didn't say Mark Andrews. He said he could have made something of himself, and I agree with that.
I think he could have made something of himself. I think if had he played tight end, you would not describe him as the best in-show, non-NFL football player a part of the Meadowlark universe. You would just say former college football player,
Yeah.
Tony.
Your camp, your wide receiver workshop.
It wasn't my camp. I got to correct that. It was Chad Ochocinco's camp who I came to help out.
I was surprised to hear you say, though, that Ochocinco was your favorite.
Oh, yeah.
Your favorite
Number one.
NFL player ever.
Yeah, no, he was a really. Cause I grew up a Bengals fan because my brother played there, and they had really, really rough years. And I remember he was like, "Yeah, we got this rookie. Watch, he's going to be a household name." And no one knew about him, and so he would bring me these one-on-one tapes of him and T.J. Hushmanzada. So I would just study these things. So I would get home from school, throw them in the DVD player, which was a thing that played movies back in the day. Throw them in the DVD player. And I would just watch these one-on-ones all day. And I would just be like, man. So then I would go to OTAs every once in a while, and they would let me sit there, and I'd watch them do one-on-ones. And Chad was like, you talk about footwork and all the things people give me credit for. At his size, his ability to come out of breaks, his ability to change his speed, his understanding of the game, he really was a technician. And I just, his personality brought a bunch of positive vibes to a market in the NFL, which is really hard to have people talk about, especially at that time. And so that whole kind of receiver personality, it doesn't all come from him. Obviously, he was also influenced by the Deons and other people. But that receiver personality we talk of today, a lot of that comes from Chad.
So he was your favorite, at least in part, because he was behaving in a way that you weren't quite allowed to, right? Like you weren't quite good enough, and I mean this as no insult whatsoever.
That is a hard way to start that statement, but go ahead.
I mean, you were good enough to play in the pros, but to carry yourself in the pros
How many contracts you got?
as if you
I made $15 million. I don't know. Shoot, go ahead, I guess.
Did you carry yourself with a flamboyant arrogance that would bring the attention of your own coaches? That would be viewed as disruptive. I would imagine when you're saying that wide receiver personality, he was doing that on steroids.
Yeah, but I was in high school at the time. So by the time I got old, you grow out of it. It's like Mike Ryan's hip hop phase, right? Like it's like when you first get into it, you're like, I love this thing, right? Then over time, it you water it down a little bit.
a lot of bit.
I can't follow this. I'm just as insulted as you were at Dan's intro.
You know,
what are you talking about?
When Mike had his hair blonde and he was calling himself the real Slim Shady.
I did have an Eminem poster on
when
my
he
wall.
was 16. You know, you get to the pros, and it's like, okay, I can't do this at work. I can't do this at work. Chad could. But in high school, that bravado of like, oh, okay, I put a lot of work in, and then I go out here and I tell somebody what I'm going to do, and I make them. It did fuel a lot of that generation. And I think even the receivers today, I'll give you this other tidbit. Tight end U works because of the personality profile of tight ends. This is a group of guys that want to get together, have a beer, let's work. We're simple people. At the wide receiver workout, you know, I mean, they're amazing athletes. They work hard, you know, but they're jumping in their Rolls Royces. They put their shades on, immediately put 10 chains on, and go do their thing. It's just a completely different personality profile. And that personality profile, in a lot of ways, comes from Ochocinco. So in my opinion, he is kind of like the godfather of the wide receiver position on and off the field, because he encapsulates like the receivers before him, who he has a major connection to. And he's like the oldest receiver that the new generation of receivers still know, love, and have a lot of respect for and know a lot of information about.
Well,
because that's rare.
You mentioned something you can't do at work, or the idea of things that you can't do at work, and I wanted your guidance on something that Mike Ryan's been doing at work for a while now.
Hey, if this should be an HR question, please don't get me involved. I would not like to be a...
It might be an HR question.
Okay.
It's been
jerking off.
It's been a complaint that's been filed against Mike Ryan here in the morning. And
Every morning.
It is not jerking off. Thank you for nothing. In fact, you know what? Hold on.
Down the
just a
club?
second. No, let's just get him out of here.
Oh, come on.
Minor penalty, 2
It's always
minutes,
a retaliation against Scott.
Mike Ryan, why are you leaving?
You want to talk about me after I'm gone? Okay.
That's Mike Ryan I wanted
I thought
out.
it was like an NHL thing where I
What is that
chuck
penalty
you
for?
and bait you into one. All
That
right.
a great joke penalty? When do we add that? I've been gone that long?
Yeah, I thought it was funny.
Great comedic timing is a penalty in this place? Goodness gracious.
Depends on who it is.
Creating that visual, that particular visual, that one is the one I want out of the room right now.
Immediately.
The thing that I was asking you, though, that may indeed be an HR violation that has been complained about here by other employees, is Mike Ryan coming in and playing his own music during the first hour while people are having breakfast and stuff that people are milling in.
Okay.
And today he chose satanic music. That's what he was playing at 8 o'clock in the morning in here.
Okay.
And my question to you is, if there's a guy in the locker room who's playing music that the other guys in the locker room object to, how does that situation get handled?
How does it play out?
Because HR isn't really a thing in the NFL.
Not in
is
locker
it?
rooms. No, man. Yeah, HR is kind of handled like
In the locker
prison.
room, it's like, turn that shit off.
Yeah, it's like, can the person playing... It's a very simple question. Can the person playing the music whoop you? Right? Because there's no... It's like prison. And the guards ain't going to get here quick enough to save you. So how confident do you feel in walking up to this person and telling him to shut his music the hell off? Okay? That's going to escalate. So you got to be able to assess that.
But
you know?
that itself would be a human resources violation, to come up to somebody aggressively on their music and try to fight them.
You're trying to
Well,
put the
no, you
lens
don't.
of trying to put the lens of corporate America into the NFL locker room. It doesn't matter what which HR says.
Yeah, I mean, and also you don't come maybe with that aggression out the gate, but you got to know that's where it's going. In an NFL locker room, you know every single thing can and will escalate to that.
Let's go ahead and actually tease out that hypothetical, because I do imagine NFL teams do have human resources. So take me through, like, the D tackle going to human resources to complain about the edge rusher playing the music too loud. To go take that to whoever it is representing HR, the head of HR. Would there even is there human resources in the locker room? Is that can that be available to somebody to complain about one of the other 52 guys?
No, I don't think that's a thing. I think anytime you've even got any like residue from something similar is like the Richie Incognito situation with the guy that said he was being bullied.
Jonathan Martin.
Yeah, Jonathan Martin. And I think like that played out.
That all started with music?
I don't think it started with music. I think it was like, where do you go when you're getting picked? Like an NFL locker room, it is straight up, you got to handle it. I don't want to make the like equivalent to prison, but it kind of is that mentality where these are the toughest people in the country. Like you have to be tough to play this sport. Doesn't mean you're the toughest guy. But if you don't feel like you can go to somebody and really be like, yo, I think your music is like, yo, turn it off. Or, hey, will you turn that off? No, I'm not turning it off. All right, so what's next? Are you going to be okay with that? Or are you going to say, well, turn it off or we got an issue?
Well, none of this solves our particular dilemma. Though,
no, but you asked me how it's handled in the locker room.
So what do I do here about the fact that this morning at 8 a.m. satanic music was being played? I didn't ask anybody what their thoughts on it was. I didn't know it was satanic music until it was pointed out to me. But put it on the poll at Le Batard Show.
What do you do?
Is playing satanic music at the office an HR violation? Yes or no? At Le Batard Show. Mike, do you wish to clue us in, or was it yesterday's information about the satanic concert that you're going to?
I mean, it's not always satanic music. That's a recent binge I've been on. But it is part of my creative process. It has been for 20 years. I used to play CDs at the old 790 studios.
I don't like it.
I used to play music in the old Clevelander studios. That's how I ramped myself up. For my particular line of work, which is creative. And sometimes it's good vibes. Sometimes it doesn't necessarily mesh with the room, but it is what it is for 20 years. And that's what it's going to be.
You know what? If you're going to be at the mercy of the vibes of Mike every morning, which every morning I've been in here, Mike plays music. This is the first I'm hearing about an HR violation.
And it's pretty eclectic.
You know, and it's across the board. You can't then all of a sudden, I don't like this particular music. Now we go to HR.
Oh, religious. So he's got freedom of religious beliefs with his satanic music? Because he was wandering around here the other day asking whether or not someone can be not a Satan worshiper while enjoying satanic music.
Yeah, I know people that listen to gospel that aren't Christians. Mm-hmm. You know, it's good. It's good vibes. And if you like good vibes, get it. If you like bad vibes, Mike's going to get it. Now, I'm not a fan of satanic music.
No.
For sure.
That's all right. It's not for everybody.
And I'm not here.
It wasn't for me until
I'm not here frequently enough to give Mike the locker room treatment of, hey, I don't want to listen to that every morning. Turn it off. And then Mike says, I ain't turning nothing off. And then I say, you going to turn that music off, or you're going to be hearing ringing in your damn ears by the time this is how the locker room handles it. So if you got an issue, I think you go locker room on.
How often would you escalate to that point in an NFL locker room? How often would
It's only happened a couple of times.
But it did happen to you a couple of times?
There's no way you could play in the NFL for a long period of time and you not get to the point where you want to fight. It's a part of it. Like getting to it with coaches. Typically with me, it would only rear its head if it got in the way of me doing my job, right? So if I am studying for plays and I got a rookie who's like playing music loud in camp and I got a roommate or something and it's like, okay, now it's worth it because either if I go and I mess up tomorrow and I get cut, I'm going to be mad that I didn't fight you for turning this music off because I didn't learn my plays. So like if it gets in the way of the money, then yeah, you gotta do what you gotta do.
Can you actually take me through what you imagine would happen in the hypothetical I'm proposing, which is the defensive tackle goes and asks to file a human resources complaint against the edge rusher? What's happening next in that locker room once people find that out? Once people find out that it's not being handled in the locker room by the locker room, that now corporate America has made its way into the huddle, and we have a human resources problem. Because you have to keep in mind, I'm going to go ahead and say that every NFL team probably has a pretty expansive human resources arm for all their other employees, because of all of the people being employed by the average NFL team. But I'm guessing the players are never using that option. And if I wander around the locker room and ask, do you guys know who human resources is here? Do you guys know who to go complain to if you have some sort of violation or workplace violation that you do not like?
I'm picturing an email.
Like this
I'm not appreciating the vibe of the music. Can you please?
This is a ridiculous hypothetical Like it's the human resources is the head coach. That's who the human resource department is, and that only gets escalated if
human resources are right here.
Here's H and here's R.
Right here.
Exactly. Right hand is what it's RH department. So I don't think that that's even a thing. Listen, we shower in a room 40 people at once together. That's a human resource violation.
That's a good point.
I hate it. So I'm like, don't give corporate like equivalencies to places where everyone is just cool with it. Like, oh yeah, these are millionaires. Some of them worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And where do they shower? A foot away from the next person. And they use the same soap. That's ridiculous.
That's got to be an HR issue.
It doesn't make any sense. You know, like separate the showers. Give the common decency. Otherwise, it's like, okay, this is the environment that we're fostering here. So we can't expect to have a real HR department for NFL football players.
You can't have an HR department when Greg Williams is telling you to take off the head of the snake.
Cut
off the head of the snake. All right, boys. We're gonna talk about
that. Would be a great study. How many
IP.
HR violations actually happen on a day-to-day basis in NFL locker rooms and meeting rooms?
How is it possible that Andrew Hawkins is sitting here with all of the words at his disposal in all of the language that's at his disposal, and you say the phrase, I don't want to compare it to a prison, while comparing it to a prison twice?
Same soap?
I could.
The showers.
Tell me it's body gel.
It's just like there's no other thing that I can compare it to because everything is just handled in itself and nobody on the outside cares. That's the point. Like, you don't actually care about how someone is being treated at prison. No one ever talks about it. You know, like there's a lot of going on in there. It's not as bad as prison. Trust me, I understand that. That's why I don't want to compare it.
Yeah, you have loofahs.
But there's like a couple of things that it's like in the sense that, yeah, that's not normal.
Wait, do you have
40
loofahs?
people having to shower together is not normal. And any other, if I told you that was happening at the Heat Arena, like for like the people working in the front office, you'd be like, whoa, wait a minute, man. Somebody should do something about this.
Quick question. Is it BYOL, or do they have community loofahs, or is it a non-loofah bathroom?
I think it's cultural. I think like some places have washcloths for the black players because statistically the white guys don't use washcloths. It's not their thing. Some people have their own loofahs. Even the body products people use, like black men shave different than white men. And that's been like an innovation in locker rooms.
What, you mean like against the grain? Or what are we talking about?
You know, like you use straight razors. A lot of black men don't use straight razors. We use clippers. And so it was like a conversation that we've had in locker rooms with teams to say, hey, you're giving us these Bics. We don't use Bics to shave. That's not how our people do it because we get razor bumps because our hair is a little more coarse. You know, and it grows in curls.
Racially biased? The razors were racially biased?
Yeah, they were.
Chris and I use the clippers.
I'm blacker than I thought.
There you go. It's
You
the
just
red in
ginger.
you. Well, I've heard that that's a thing in recent conversation. So yeah, it's
in recent conversation. Let's be clear on the claim that he's making. You've heard that redheads
yes.
are
black.
There was it was a trending.
He is a
thing.
good dancer.
It makes sense. A lot going on. Look, see,
Does he do a salsa dance?
that's something.
It's funny that you should mention that because I didn't know whether to point out the other day. This delighted me. Frankie, our security guy, I was delighted to go through the gym, see him on the treadmill, and he was doing salsa on the treadmill. Instead of walking or running, he was doing...
Got to work the hips out, Dan. That's the thing. You got to get those hips going.
Frankie, what kind of life are you living, brother?
It made me happy for him. He made exercise look happier than I imagined it
I
being.
like that.
So Hawkins came in today, and he was excited to talk about what we spent too much time talking about yesterday, which is that Florida Panthers enforcer who beat up a guy on the golf course. And I was thinking about on the way home how bad your odds have to be in terms of being the drunk guy who's holding up people behind you and find that the people behind you have an NHL enforcer in their group. What were your thoughts here on this video?
Oh man, this is the most satisfying video I think I've watched all year, you know, and because I'm like had no context for it, and the dude is like,
Got it all in recourse.
He's peacocking, and I'm thinking like, oh, okay, I like that tactic. Scare him into not like this guy might be crazy. He might walk off, but then he attacks, and I'm like, whoa, he must be a really good fighter. He must really trust himself with the fisticuffs, and the result couldn't have been more opposite. And every bang that he said and every punch that he threw made the video that much more satisfying. To throw
That toss at the end.
the throwing him in a pond and then the toss at the end, I mean, that's peak cinema right there, bro.
I mean, he went, the drunk guy who got thrown went home and had streak marks on his side from how far he had gone on the ground after being thrown. Just coming back a second, though, I do want to just one time go back and check out his friend. Check out the friend.
He does a great job by the video department here, frame by frame.
He's like 3 feet off the ground there.
He looks like Don Bailey in the carpet ad right now.
That is
Yes.
whiplash, headache.
Great job.
His shoulders separated. He bounced.
He bounced.
He bounced off the ground, bro.
Get the bounce. Get the moment he bounces off the ground. There it is. Yes.
Like, if you even get it back to where he pulls him and he kind of does like a kick step to like gain the momentum like a shot putter, like that is not his first time.
Jessica has compiled for us a list. I mean, because I don't want to say she is thrilled that Whitty is gone. I would not allege such a thing. But there were sparks created in the tensions of Whitty just generally being annoying and unusual. And I think being more comfortable than anybody in the history of our show showing everybody his weirdnesses.
I love this, that we're just burying him on the day after he leaves.
Well,
we should do this more often.
Do it when he's here.
Enough. No, he's going
We
around,
did, to be fair.
He's taking
I know,
a
I'm
victory lap, and he's like, waving at everybody like, and Mike is calling him one of the greatest human beings he's ever met, and enough.
Well, he is.
Enough with the kid's 30. Enough with the
Left
eulogy.
me in a lurch, though.
Yeah, that's a great human being for you. Hey, Mike, hold this steaming bag of shit for me. Will I go blow up somewhere else?
I have never heard someone describe themselves as a steaming bag of shit.
Oh, wait, I'm not. What?
You're in the middle of what we're doing. How do you get to
How do you think we got steaming?
we were just a bag of shit, and then you just got here, and the thing really caught fire. Top 5 weirdest things about Chris Whittingham. Is that what the list is?
Well, I decided to make it the top 5 revelations that we learned about Whitty over the last 2 years. He will be missed. Like you said, Dan, we often bickered on air because he could be very disagreeable and contrarian at times. And as a grumpy person, I tended to argue back with him constantly.
OLI? Do we have OLI?
We have one OLI.
Because
Nice.
he gave us so many weirdnesses. And one of the things I truly loved about Whitty, I do past tense there because I no longer love him.
Yes, that's right.
But he is alive,
Loved.
right?
One of the things I loved about
$50
Whitty
fine.
is his great comfort. And yes, that's weird about me. You think it's weird, and I don't care that you think it's weird.
Exactly.
OLI.
He wore 2 watches.
No, he didn't.
Yeah, I
He
could never
did.
get over that one.
Yeah, at
That's
the end.
only an OLI because he revealed it to us 2 weeks ago. Apple sent him a watch when they hired him.
watch.
And he decided to wear that on one wrist and his wrist watch on the other wrist.
He says he's going to do it going forward, period, that he likes it as a stylistic choice.
Of course he does.
Number
Weirdo.
5. Double bubble fucks him up.
That's right. He ate his gum.
He would swallow his gum every time.
Oh, that didn't even make the list. I forgot about that one.
Well, that's why it fucks him up.
Well,
Wait a second. He would swallow
Every
his
piece
gum?
of gum he's ever had, he swallowed.
He eats all his gum.
That can't be healthy.
But that's not
Well,
even
that's why he says it fucks him up.
But that's not
that's not
what
why.
Jessica's saying.
That's not why. The double bubble has so much sugar that it fucks him up. And it gives him a headache, and he can't eat double bubble. He revealed that on Mystery Crate last year during our candy draft.
Maybe if he didn't eat it, to Mike's point.
It's why it fucks him up.
I think they're separate revelations, though. I screwed up. That should have been number 5. That he swallows all his gum.
Oh,
That is a ton of sugar, though, is it not? Double bubble is a specific burst of fireworks of sugar.
It's awesome.
More than most gum.
I'm about to throw up.
What is the best gum?
None of them. They're all terrible.
What?
I hate
What do you mean by
gum.
that?
Bazooka.
I hate
No.
gum.
Bazooka is my
Bubblicious.
favorite gum.
Oh,
Oh.
Bubblicious. Bubblicious. Or what's the one with the juice in the inside? When you take a bite, it like
The fruit.
Gushers.
the fruit
gushers.
ones?
There you
No,
go.
that's not gum.
That's not gum.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
a
that's
candy.
I
That's
think
a-
that is Bubblicious.
There's one that's a
not?
gum that
There is
has-
something that has like a jelly in it. Yes,
Yeah.
it's just a burst of extra syrupy sugar.
Yeah.
How about Big League Chew?
Big
I
League
love
Chew's
that.
good.
Nasty.
But for
Little
30
bag of
seconds.
Big League Chew.
Everyone's,
30 seconds.
everyone's
Yeah,
grandma
30
likes Big
seconds.
Red, right?
Yeah.
Big
My grandma
Big
used to eat
Red's good.
cinnamon gum, and it would
Yeah.
burn the shit out of
So,
my tongue,
when
and I
we
would
tra-
still eat it.
When we traded for Shaq, the first game, he beckons me over. Shaq has this weird thing where he doesn't want to talk sometimes.
Big Aristotle.
So he just literally beckons me over with one finger. And I say, yeah, big fella, what do you need? And he goes, he points to his mouth and he goes, and I'm like, you want gum? Like, and he nods. I'm like, okay, so I go get the gum basket or whatever. He looks at it, he's like, what is this bullshit? I said, what? I need Big Red. I'm like, well, I didn't know. I've got this Orbit cinnamon one. She's like, no, I need Big Red. So I had to leave. We had a game. I left. I went to a gas station to go buy some Big Red, right? I come back. He's already played, game's over. So the next game, I bring him the Big Red. He's like, no. Bring me the Orbit. Because he had a good game when he had the Orbit. Big Red, piece of shit gum.
Wow.
Hubba Bubba Max is the one with the the juicy
you go.
explosion.
No, Big Red is terrible, and I think my grandma only eats it because she has old taste buds and needs to feel something.
She's like a coal miner, right? And that's the only way she could taste is if it's burning.
She's not a coal miner. But
Okay. Well, I mean, I just figured.
The only 3 seconds that fruit stripe gum
It's a
lasts
good guess.
is a good 3 seconds.
Yes.
Yeah.
Put
Fair.
it on
grandfather was
the
a
poll,
coal miner.
please, at Le Batard Show. Is Orbits the shittiest of the gum?
No.
This episode is presented by DraftKings. DraftKings, the crown is yours.
Pablo Torre will be on with us in an hour. That story of his about the NFL colluding, even though an arbiter didn't rule technically that the NFL had colluded, that story is not going away. That story is going to continue to have stuff in it that is going to get found out, that is going to make it more and more problematic, especially since Don Van Natta is now sniffing around the proceedings, the
DVN.
the Pulitzer Prize winner. And he's reporting, according to sources, that the NFLPA and the NFL agreed to keep collusion findings secret. And this is obviously problematic for a couple of reasons. And I wanted to ask Hawkins some questions about this before Pablo Torre comes on. But we talked yesterday about DeMaurice Smith having a book coming out. And one of the complaints that many people had about DeMaurice Smith inside of NFL players circles was that DeMaurice Smith would be the type of person who would write a book when that's not the position that he is in. But very often when you get a showy lawyer, when you get a lawyer who is interested in whatever, attention, bringing publicity to himself, not just his cause, you get a lot of people complaining about what his interests are. Right now, Lloyd Howell runs the Players Union, and there are reports about him having conflicts with NFL-related businesses because this is a pollutant throughout unions in the big sports where the membership doesn't necessarily trust that the person in charge of the membership is doing the bidding of just the membership. DeMaurice Smith was always accused of being very self-interested or distrusted by his own people, which is sort of, it's a bit inherent to the position,
Yes.
right? It happens a great deal, not just to DeMaurice.
I'm happy you said that because out of all the sports, it seems like that is the most difficult one to be head of the Players Association for because of the very nature of that sport being so violent. There are only a few guys that survive in that league long enough to make money. So if you have something like a work stoppage on your clock, the vast majority of your player base is not there for very long. This is their opportunity to make money. If they lose half a season, they're losing potentially 30% of their pro career. So it is very difficult. It's like people forming opinions about the leadership in California, when California is an impossible state to govern compared to some smaller states. So I actually have a great deal of empathy for that position. It seems like it's one of the more difficult ones in sports.
It is because also there's so many people from so many different interests, right? Like to your point, even about California, like these are people from all over the map that have completely different views on a lot of these things. DeMaurice, in my experience or my opinion, even while I was a player, was I felt like he always wanted everyone to like him. And again, as someone who's been a part of the NFLPA, like through my family for years, literally almost my whole life, it was like this is a position where the person at the helm has to have a large amount of I don't give a shit. Like you can't care if anybody likes you. And when I would get into it sometimes, because I was a player rep, with the union when they'd come in, it was like every time we would visit or they would visit, it would always be all the great things that, we had or happened or, hey, we had this last CBA deal. This is what we got. This is what we got. But I never felt like they ever talked about all the things and the noise that was happening of like, hey, this is what we lost. This is what the issues would be. This is what the risks are. And I'm like, we can't actually be making the dent in what we're trying to make a dent if we can't call it exactly like it is. And so I would say, hey, don't come in here and tell us about all these great things. Let's talk about the hard things so we can actually make change. Like that was one of my criticisms. I also think we need to do a better job as football players or like as a union, I would say, of merging former players and current players. That was my position even as a player because I feel like experience is one of the most valuable assets in any profession. And by separating, keeping those things separate, the current guys never have that brain trust of information that will help them in their voting and their decision making. And number two is basically using the vehicle that we have to educate the next crop of players. Because even if it does stay how it is, the guys that are in high school now will be voting and making decisions for the guys that are currently in the league. And I know it's like, well, how do you know who's going to get to the NFL? Yeah, it's a crapshoot. You don't really know. But I will tell you, of the top 300 players every year, 45% of them go to the NFL.
So it's somewhat of an indictment to say of DeMaurice Smith he was a little too interested in being liked. A greater indictment to me of him and others in that position is not necessarily that his constituency liked him or didn't like him, but do you or do you not trust him? And this reporting today by Don Van Natta is something that I'm telling you will have more consequences that will result in more discovery because NFL players are now being informed by reporting that the NFL Players Union actively partnered with the NFL in keeping information away from the NFL Players Union's constituency. And once you get there, now players are asking really uncomfortable questions about, what do you mean you agreed to a confidentiality agreement with the NFL that doesn't give us the information about what you agreed to? What I'm telling you about DeMaurice Smith writing a book, and I understand why people would want it, and I understand why he would do it, especially after leaving. But the personality type who's in that position, who feels a great need to write a book, is exactly the criticism DeMaurice Smith was getting when he had the distrust of some of his clients and constituency, that he was a little too interested in how things looked for him as opposed to the group.
I will say, I had to Google it. I did not know the current NFLPA president at the moment because he's avoided news. And DeMaurice Smith did like the headlines. I don't think he's going to be able to avoid it anymore. I know that that's a criticism, wanting to be liked, but you're literally representing your players. You almost have to be liked by a huge segment of who you're representing. I will say, though, it was curious when DeMaurice Smith became the head of the NFLPA. It was a departure from what the NFL did. That league in particular, the players really put a premium on guys that actually played the game, representing their interests. And DeMaurice Smith did not have that pro player background. I guess that was a moment in time, Hawk, where they wanted someone with presidential acumen and executive level acumen because of the nature of the money that was coming into the business.
Look, and when I say wanted to be liked, I'm not talking about by players. I'm talking about by everybody. And you can't be liked by everybody when you are tasked with the interests of one specific group of people, right? To your point about Gene Upshaw, again, also had his shortcomings at times, but he did not give a shit. He would go toe-to-toe with anyone, and he was a former player, so you never questioned the motives or the things that he cared about deep down because you kind of identified with his life and his process to get to that point. You have to have a vested interest in what you're protecting. Like, I don't think this is a for-hire job, and you don't have to be a former player to have this job, but I feel like if you're making putting your hat in the ring for this very high-paid, very visible role, I need to be convinced of why you truly give a damn. Because that's what's going to matter, because this is hard. You're going to battle against billionaires in a business where you don't have leverage.
But take me inside your home as I give you this information. You're an NFL player, and I inform you, hey, there was a confidentiality agreement between the NFL and the NFLPA about how it is that collusion sort of happened, and that information was kept confidential, at least in part, so that the players wouldn't know what their union representatives had done on their behalf. Now take me, you're an active player, and I send you that information. Am I already, just by virtue of what it is I've told you about the entire history of all this, do you not have confirmation bias? Are you not already in a circumstance where you distrust your union leadership, and therefore this information arrives and it is confirming your bias? I do not trust the people who represent me.
I think you I won't even say that. I would say the current players that you have to realize, and this is what I'm talking about, of the way the system is set up, right? As a football player in the NFL, and I don't give a damn like if you're the last guy on the roster or you're making $50 million a year. It is hard to make the most of that and make as much money as you can without solely being focused there. Now, there are people who can have a foot in both lanes. So if you're asking me about current players, and every time I hear this conversation, whether it's on podcasts or whether it's, in the news or these things arise, you'd be surprised at how many current players aren't clocking this conversation because they drafted a guy at my position and I'm on the bubble. Or they're starting to give this guy more targets than me because they want me to take a pay cut, and or they're going to cut me if he has a bigger season than me. And I got to wake up at 5 a.m. tomorrow, and I got to do recovery, and I'm going to train till 1 o'clock, and I got to go eat. And it's just, I have kids. It's not as, big picture when you're in it as you think it is. That's typically because on the outside, you guys are seeing the big picture because we don't report on the day-to-day of what it takes to be an NFL player or the things they're considering and whatnot. And former players, they care more about it because they're on the other side. They no longer have the health insurance. They're no longer getting the $100,000 a game or $500,000 a game checks that they got for 8 years, 5 years, or what have you. And now they're like, well, I wish we would have done this. But even in that moment, if I could go back right now as a 39-year-old back in the NFL, and I would say, man, would I focus more on that? I wouldn't, because I think about the ways I could have made $10 more million. I don't think about, man, I wish I would have dug more into the CBA. And that's where I'm saying the system and how it's set up is not conducive to take those strides. So every time everyone else is surprised by it, I'm more surprised that you're surprised by it.
Well, the thing about your perspective, though, as an unrelenting survivor, and that makes sense, you're saying, look, I had to concentrate on the daily micro. I couldn't do the historic macro of perspective. Mm-hmm. And the grand majority of players in the league are more like you than the ones who are making the big money.
Right,
but if I were making the big money and I had my safety and I was not worried about the day-to-day survival, and this arrived on my on my information highway, and I'm a person who is expecting my union leadership to represent me, I would immediately start asking an assortment of questions about, what do you mean my own people were withholding information from me about possible collusion in my league?
Hawk, this one does seem a little bit easy from the player's perspective. This is collusion to keep everybody down at the highest level. I think people even at the lowest levels, it's not the disconnect that you'll have from a guy that's on the practice squad to Russell Wilson money. This is ownership groups and front offices getting together to keep wages down, and it doesn't time up with a work stoppage.
But it's not.
This seems like an easy win for the players to rise up.
Mike, it's not just to keep wages down, which is bothersome enough. It's not just that this happened 2 days after Deshaun Watson's guaranteed money, which is problematic enough. I'm more bothered if I'm a representative. If I'm somebody who's being represented by, I'm trusting because of the daily fight that Hawkins is talking about. I got to concentrate on beating my one guy in front of me because we're fighting over the same money. I'm mad that in any way my union is collectively bargaining a limit on my guaranteed money. But I'm angrier still that they entered into an agreement with the NFL where they didn't want me to have information, never mind money, just total information on what my situation is.
Right. Normally when the NFLPA and the NFL come to an agreement, you see the benefit for the players. I'm struggling to wrap my head around, like, what is the benefit of this secret agreement in which we have evidence that there was collusion to keep wages down, to collude against fully guaranteed contracts, because everyone outside of the sport and within the sport says, well, the Deshaun Watson contract kind of breaks the system a little bit. Are they going the way of NBA with guaranteed contracts? I really don't understand what the players gain from the NFLPA not making a huge mess of this situation, because great investigative reporting has kind of caught them red-handed, and it seems as though they put it on a wayward arbiter, but more and more evidence is stacking up. Do you think Roger Goodell is in his offices seeing daily news, whether it be about Bill Belichick, the game's greatest coach, or now this, and just crumples up a paper and says, "Get me the Batman," and it's popular?
The thing that I'm bothered by, if I'm an NFL player on this, is the idea that in any way my union representative isn't treating the NFL as an adversary. That they're entering into partnership with somebody to keep information from me. They're entering into partnership with my adversary to keep information away from me. I'd be asking a lot more questions if I was a player with guaranteed money in that league who had been evidently, reportedly betrayed by their management.
That's tricky. That's tricky for me. I get what you're saying, because the owners in that any potential work stoppage, the owners are always going to be viewed as the enemy, but it is a partnership. We're an independent media company that has several partnerships. I can't think of one that works being adversarial. We had one of those when we were employees at Disney between management and us, and it wasn't for long. So I don't know how you make it work by viewing things through that prism. Like, this is my enemy, when they're partners in a billion-dollar industry.
You tell me, Hawk, because I think that DeMar Smith, when he writes a book calling Roger Goodell a cold, dark void, like, he's telling you afterward, we were adversaries. He was telling you during that they're adversaries. Like, he works for the players. He does not work for the league. He's not making money that the NFL is giving him. The players are giving him a percentage of their money to protect their interests. Like,
it was also that was a huge inflection point for the league when DeMaurice Smith had it too. Not only is it a hard job, but I think on his watch, when you have the concussion issues, the business absolutely booming to the point that it becomes one of the more profitable business ventures in the world. It was a unique time in history. It's like being in charge now on the forefront of AI blowing up. Like, how do you lead? There's no playbook exactly for this. Mm-hmm. When that concussion study came out, that was unprecedented. It was something that was talked about, but they didn't have the data behind it.
When Hawkins talks about the way the system works against the player, I want you to understand that what you're trying to do with a lawyer is ask for impeccable morality and ethics in a situation that is ripe for contamination because the player is so busy focused on his or her day-to-day and very often has spent so much time trying to get to the top 1% of that 1% that they're not spending generally a whole lot of time thinking about business union issues. They have people that they're giving substantive percentages. DeMaurice Smith retires as a very wealthy man off the bodies of others because his job is to make sure that his employees have the maximum amount of information to know that they're being well represented by him. But I'm telling you, it's a group of people, not just football players, but athletes in general who have to beat other athletes for money. They're particularly susceptible to not having the correct information before they're betrayed by the people who they're paying to make sure they have the correct information.
I couldn't believe yesterday that Zaz said he wasn't interested in this book. I find this topic in particular, and I think I can code it with understanding what D. Smith's agenda is. I'm really interested to read this book with my ears.
I don't think it's a book that a union head should be writing. I don't think that a union and I say this like Marvin Miller wrote books and changed the way that finances work, but Marvin Miller didn't agree to a salary cap. Like Marvin Miller didn't agree to fixed costs that make it so these owners can collude over guaranteed money because they can't actually control themselves. The system controls them. And in this particular case, you have to have an honest broker representing the NFL players. They need the representation because so few of them, for example, have law degrees.
I'm also just fascinated by the narrative around DeMaurice Smith that paints him as a bad guy. I'm like, well, when we were trying to pick sides during those work stoppages or talks of work stoppages, the enemy was Roger Goodell. And Roger Goodell has gotten more popular, navigated a moment in time around Ray Rice where people were calling for his job, and it seemed to have real positive momentum, that his job was genuinely in jeopardy, and the game was more boring. Offenses were stagnant. You had Peyton Manning winning Super Bowl 50 in what was one of the worst seasons in NFL history in terms of how to view the game and the viewing experience for the fan. He navigated that, and Roger Goodell, I think, has actually done a pretty good job. If you look at the landscape of sports, and this may have more to do with Adam Silver's recent shortcomings, he's gone somehow from categorically consensus worst commissioner in sports around the time of Ray Rice to now you look at it, it's like, damn, is Raj the best?
He was kicking DeMaurice Smith's ass for 10 years, man. You got to appreciate greatness. He's like Tom Brady. Like, they were in a head-to-head battle. And if that's what this book is about, then that makes more sense.
How I got my ass kicked by Roger Goodell.
I'm not surprised by. I'm not interested in the book, not because I don't, I have an issue with DeMaurice Smith, but I don't care about the words. I can see what the actions were when these issues arose, or what we fought for, what we didn't fight for, what was a big deal, what was painted to us as like, oh, don't worry about this. And then it ended up being something we absolutely should have worried about. And to your point, even about this, again, there's more information that I'm sure will come. Union representatives better have a bunch of questions. They better get as much information as possible. And to your point, there better be a damn good reason why you sign a non-disclosure agreement that maybe you can talk about in those rooms. And they should make the decision to say, okay, is this valid or is it not? But the interesting part about this, and the reason why the system is always hurtful, is because in the NBA, to your point about partnership, the NFLPA and the NBA have a true partnership because it is a face player-driven league. If Steph Curry doesn't play a certain amount of games, if LeBron doesn't play a certain amount of games, I didn't come to the Warriors game to not see Steph Curry. I'm not coming to the Heat arena not to see Dwayne Wade and LeBron James. I'm coming for them. In the NFL, it's the Shield. These are recyclable names. The moment I get traded, my jersey number goes to the next person, and Hawkins is forgotten in the Browns, right? Like, yeah, we have some affinity for him, but we are following.
Never forgotten.
Never forgotten. We're following the Browns. We're following the Dolphins. This is my team for 30 years. It was my grandfather's team, so on and so forth. The faces of the league are the quarterbacks, right? And the 32 quarterbacks are paid the most handsomely. They're the ones in the locker room who have a relationship with the owners. They don't come and talk to a lot of players. Most owners, not all owners, but most of them will have a relationship with the quarterback, the face of their franchise. And if we keep them happy by making sure they get their money and they are handsomely played, they're going to be less likely to jump into these union fights or fight for rights of whatever. And I understand it because I'm paid. I don't want to mess up the gravy train that I have for me and my family. Now, on this guarantee, yeah, it trickles down, but the first direct impact is exactly those guys. It's you guys. It's you guys that they're trying to limit the guarantees of in this report or whatever they're asking about. So that's going to be the interesting thing for me, because now you have an issue that affects them being the highest paid faces of the league more than it affects the other 1768.
You mentioned Tom Brady. You also used the word handsome in the middle of handsomely paid.
Mm-hmm.
Tom Brady is having a winning summer. Tom Brady doesn't often have off seasons. Tom Brady suffered about as much criticism as he's ever gotten last year during the football season. Pretty close to it.
That's the only thing close to an L I think he's got.
His broadcasting career has had some criticism in it that is louder than almost all of the other criticism that he would have had. But now people are following his dating habits. And what is the latest that has been reported on Tom Brady after he won the Fanatics games, the Michael Rubin games of celebrity winning?
Yeah, he's having a great offseason. Now, I don't know how many offseasons Tom Brady has ever had, but even in retirement, the dude cannot stop winning. He's been spotted in Ibiza with Sofia Vergara. Happy birthday to her, by the way. He was seen palling around, reportedly, with Sydney Sweeney at Jeff Bezos' wedding, photographed on a yacht with Kate Hudson. Tom Brady is having a Tom Brady-like offseason.
A happy birthday to Sofia Vergara.
Happy birthday to
her.
I don't care. Good luck.
53, I believe. That's nuts.
Speaking of birthdays, let's get John C. Reilly, please, singing happy birthday, of course, to Jack White from the pitching mound in Detroit, please. Let's see what we have here. John C. Reilly. Universally funny. Let's see what he did here.
To my friend Jack White. On 3. 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday to you. Come on, Detroit. Happy birthday to you.
Speed it up.
Happy birthday, dear Jack. Happy birthday to you.
Was that like a first pitch
Play ball.
that he just was like, give me the mic? Like, he seems to be out there to throw out our first pitch.
My skin is crawling with how slow that took. I was embarrassed for Jack White.
Jack White was embarrassed. Why was John C. Reilly wearing a full Detroit Tigers uniform with a scarf? It appeared there was a scarf in there.
Hyped up pants. He had the stirrups almost.
Was it For the Love of the Game? Is that the name of the movie where John C. Reilly produced what I believe to be the single least athletic thing ever produced by an actor in a sports movie. John C. Reilly is the catcher of the Tigers. Tried to catch a foul ball, ran straight toward the back wall, did so very clumsily, very poorly, caught the foul ball, but they had to have done 1,000 takes of that because he clearly did not have anything in the way of athleticism. Is that indeed a scarf underneath his Tigers jersey?
It's a kerchief.
Ascot.
Might be an ascot.
It might be an
situation.
ascot.
Maybe he's dressed like the 1933 Detroit Tigers. Was that a team then?
It does look like a bit of Black Sox era uniform, and the Tigers have the best team in baseball right now, right? Because the Dodgers have lost 6 straight games, so I'm assuming the Tigers have won more games than anyone in baseball. It's a popular time in Detroit for Detroit baseball, but For the Love of the Game is the name. I always want to do the show least athletic things that you've ever seen in the movies because Basketball Diaries with Leonardo DiCaprio, the way that he dribbled a basketball, the way that Michael Fox, or in any sitcom really, or anything from Will Smith, anything that was being done by what was his name, Alfonso Ribeira in
Ribeiro.
Oh, disculpa.
And Michael J. Fox.
Yeah, Michael J. Fox, but the dribbling of you would agree that sitcom basketball, anytime you've ever seen a basketball game played on sitcom television, it is never something that feels authentic.
It's terrible. It's the one sport that this guy is not athletic. He does not know what he's doing. Is you put somebody on a football field, they can kind of run around, you can kind of get away with it.
That's cap. Go ahead.
Well, but Hawk, you're talking about dribbling a basketball.
No, it's hard. No, it's immediate that you're not a basketball
when you're running a route,
player.
okay, like you can kind of pan away and whatever. The moment you start dribbling a basketball like this, we got issues.
You guys would agree though that sitcom television does a particularly poor job of making its basketball players look like they've ever played basketball before.
100%.
Yes.
Famously. In football, it's really bad. Like if someone is cast as a quarterback, none of them can throw.
Keanu Reeves did not give off quarterback in the replacements.
Famously, Diddy was originally cast to play Willie Beeman. And like he got it without even an audition, and then they put him on the football field. And the story is he couldn't throw at all, and that's how Jamie Foxx got the job.
Any given Sunday football, top notch. That's top notch film and television sport right there.
There was an eyeball on the field. It was unrealistic.
Orlando Brown.
You've never seen an eyeball get knocked out in a game?
Were we buying Bernie Mac as a great hitter in Mr. 3000?
It's a fine choice by you, but Mike is bringing up something I'd actually like to talk about. What is less realistic in television sitcoms or television in general? The recreation of the football or the recreation of basketball? Because Mike's saying football is harder, and he might be right, because when I think about it, I would imagine that football would be harder to make realistic because you're making giant hits realistic. But honestly, when I think of it first, I think basketball is the thing I've seen represented most poorly in things like The Fresh Prince.
Man, it's tough.
I think a throwing motion is just so easy to spot. I mean, although
ask Tony, he tried out for FIU. They knew right away the dude couldn't do it off of the throwing motion. It was almost immediate.
I gotta tell you, Danny McBride and Eastbound and Down, that was bad. That's really, really bad.
Well, I told you guys that Adam McKay mentioned that Danny McBride, it took him a year just to get him to throw that well. Kenny Powers, it took him 1 year. 1 year to teach him how to look like he was throwing a baseball from a pitching motion because he's got no athleticism. None. Zero. Didn't know how to throw a baseball. Didn't know how to hold a glove.
Imagine if Kenny Powers played basketball and how long it would have taken him to look somewhat competent dribbling a basketball from here to there.
All right, put it on the poll, please, at Le Batard Show. Hardest thing to recreate authentically on a television show. Basketball, baseball, or football. Go ahead and make your choice. Stugots is in Tahoe. He has arrived. We are telling you here consistently that Stugots is building his own empire, his own business with God Bless Football and Stupidity. He has arrived in Tahoe. He is interviewing all of the people, all of the athletes in Tahoe. He goes every year. He is at the center of his own chumminess. He loves going there. He got together with Matthew Tkachuk, Gary Sheffield, and others. Let's play some sound with him just going way overly chummy with Matthew Tkachuk, which I'm not totally sure he would have recognized if Taylor didn't ID him for Stugots.
Penalty shot for your life. I want you to think about this, okay? TJ Oshie, who is here, or Wayne Gretzky.
Oh,
penalty shot for your life, okay?
I'm probably going. That's so tough. I feel like I saw somewhere once that Gretzky said he didn't like breakaways, which I find that I find that that's not true. One of my favorite moments in sports history was watching Oshie in the 4 shootout goal game. Right. So I'm going to take Oshie.
Okay.
He
Good choice. You're living. Yes, you're alive. You're on the Mount Rushmore of South Florida sports. How does that feel to you, man? I put you there.
Well, I appreciate it.
Yes.
It takes a village, and I'm just lucky to be surrounded by tons of great people.
I can't tell who was more insincere there, Chucky at the very end, Stu or Chucky. I mean, Stu put him in quite the spot. There's no way Stugotz believes that.
How did he not kill him for choosing over Gretzky?
I gotta say, Oshie is the right call there.
It's not the right call.
Yeah,
He won a gold medal.
Oshie's the right call.
His
there.
game, Dan, not yours.
That was one of the greatest American moments. It's like Washington crossing the Potomac.
He lived, so he got it right.
Captain America.
They went to TJ Oshie multiple times in a shootout. We didn't even know that was an allowable rule, and he put a country on his back. TJ Oshie is the best.
I understand your passion here. I didn't think I would have to scream this with my headset off.
Should I take my headset off too?
Yes.
Okay.
It's Gretzky! Like, what are you doing?
I would take Pavel Bure over Gretzky on a breakaway too.
Wow.
Yeah, easy. I mean, Gretzky, as Tkachuk alluded to, Gretzky himself said he didn't like breakaways. That's not TJ Oshie in a penalty shootout situation. I think is famously better than Gretzky. And Gretzky, I mean, to his credit, didn't have many penalty shot moments. And TJ Oshie is the most famous.
Is famously better than Larry Bird at shooting 3-pointers. I think the most Larry Bird ever made in a season was 81 of them. I think.
Where you
Do I
going
have
with
that?
this?
Do I have it wrong? That if someone selects Steph Curry over Larry Bird, Stugots immediately kills them because Larry Bird, reputationally, that's where Stugots always goes consistently.
Yeah, but this isn't exactly Max Kellerman saying he would take Iguodala over Steph Curry. This one makes sense because TJ Oshie is, quite frankly, the most famous for penalty shots.
Steph Curry also makes sense because he is the most famous at making 3-pointers and the best shooter ever.
Steph Curry is the right answer for your life over Larry Bird.
Larry Bird had 98 3-pointers in 87-88.
But he's a specialist. It's like Jorginho. Not fast, not gifted, not one of the GOATs of his generation. Penalty shot specialist. People would take Jorginho in some cases over even Ronaldo, as ridiculous as that sounds.
Mike, you're factually right. What does that have to do with anything that we're talking about? Because he will kill anyone who selects Steph Curry over Larry Bird, and it has nothing to do with facts.
Right.
Okay.
No, I understand you
The
pinning him down
Stugots
on
situation.
this. You don't understand, though, this is a Tahoe thing. TJ Oshie is probably within earshot, and he's just trying to butter him up.
Well, I saw all of you wince at Stugots and also smile at him saying to Tkachuk, you're on the South Florida Mount Rushmore in excessive chumminess that you guys all believe to be an insincere lie.
I also don't think if we asked Stugots how many people are allowed on Mount Rushmore, he would actually know the number. So that I am defending him there. If you asked him, he'd say, I don't know, like 13?
Yeah, he's confusing Mount Rushmore with the Appalachian Mountains. There's a bunch of them. You just continue to add them.
Quick comparison, Steph Curry made 402 3-pointers in the 15-16 season.
Before we get to our popular new game, let's just get some more Stugots. He sat down with Gary Sheffield. I tell all of you, please, on YouTube, StuTube, find God Bless Football, find StuTube, find Stupodity. Let's play
YouTube.com/@Stugots790.
It's very easy, Mike. It comes up immediately. All you have to do is you could do Stugots 790, but it's not hard to find it all on
Apparently, it's hard to
StuTube.
remember for you.
It's StuTube. It's very easy to remember. Let's hear Stugots and Taylor with Gary Sheffield in Tahoe.
Chef, Stugotz has his personal record book where he kind of keeps score.
Okay.
We have a batting stance Hall of Fame.
Right.
Your first ballot. So first off, congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes.
Second, who else would you kind of put in the category of like batting stances that you've seen that have been like, that's a great batting stance as a batting stance Hall of Famer?
I always talk about this guy, and he's on my top 5 list of one of the best baseball players of all time. And I defined it by not just based on stats alone. It's based on, do they pitch to this guy?
Right.
And this guy, Jeff Bagwell, they didn't pitch to him.
But you love the batting stance of Bagwell.
Bagwell had one of the best batting stances. And I would spread out like that. That's why it dawned on me.
Gary, it was terrifying being at the stadium when you were up. I mean, if you were sitting on the third base side, it was terrifying.
Yeah. When I saw Bagwell for the first time, I said, that's my guy.
Right.
See, we're not no big guys. We're kind of undersized compared to these big guys. And he was almost hitting going backwards.
Right.
But he stayed in his legs so well, and I was the same type of hitter. I had to hit with my legs to generate power, and I just thought he was one of the best.
Man, I want to listen to that podcast.
Was that Archie Manning walking behind them?
The gait did kind of resemble that of Archie Manning. We can run it back the way that we could look at the lawn-darted golf player. But, man, I could listen to Gary Sheffield critique other batting stances from the 90s and early 2000s for the rest of my life. And he had a great answer. Ooh, so that might be...
That is Archie Manning.
You think so?
That is Archie Manning.
He is a tall man.
Yes.
Look at me.
Wow, dude.
I believe
Bones.
that's pretty good. It might be too young to be Archie
maybe
Manning,
it's
though.
not.
It might be too young. Let's get in there close.
No, damn it.
You know what?
I was right.
It's just a white guy.
You know what?
That was like Jim
Sorry, I'm sorry. That
Jay
is
Billis.
clearly no. I'm sorry. You came so close, but unfortunately, it's just Matthew Modine. I'm so
It does look like Modine.
Shitty gum. What did you say? You said
I didn't say it was. That's what Shaq said. What is this bullshit?
It's put on the poll as well at Le Batard Show. Big Red. Do you like it or do you not like it? And I still don't think we have a classification, a definitive consensus on what is the best gum.
Oh, we found one right here workshopping it. 5 gum.
What?
5 gum does the job.
Oh,
and it
no.
lasts
Forever.
Yes.
No.
Yeah.
It's that's so
Shipping
bland.
container aligned. Yep.
It's like 5 gum is good because like I'm just trying to keep my breath fresh. It's not because it's
This
got a
is the
bunch of
purpose of gum.
No,
It's the point.
no.
It's the sole purpose
I chewed
of
it
gum.
for a week once.
What do you mean? No, it's not the purpose of gum. And what do you mean you chewed it for a week?
The flavor was so good, I chewed it for a week.
There's no way.
And the flavor was still there.
Not the
Monday to Friday.
same piece of gum.
You
Yep.
slept with
I
it,
know.
I
You
mean.
kept changing gum.
Found our new Whittingham.
That's not true. You didn't sleep. You just kept the
A
gum in your
week.
mouth. You brush your teeth. you
Put it to
take
the side. Put it to the side. Come back.
Right.
Keep
Why
getting
it's
it.
The
called
taste
5.
is the same.
That's how long.
5 days a week, Dano.
It's the deadpan serious look on his face when he's
Yes. Well, Whittingham has left the lane open for weirdness, and now Tony is here
That's
to
not that
fill
weird.
it.
That's not that weird.
How's the rest of that list going, by the way?
We'll get to number 4 in a second. I just do want to stop on Stugots.
A week.
I want to stop on Stugots. Much like Cuba's stuck in the 1950s
We're stuck on number 5.
with Russian lattes, Stugots is stuck in the 80s with Big League Chew and Bazooka gum.
So good.
He's just
Bazooka sucks.
Bazooka's terrible.
Yeah.
I love Bazooka. I'm sorry.
Did you
Bring
read
me
the
back to a
comics?
better time.
But
You read some
Yes.
of the comics, Bazooka Joe, right?
No, I didn't read anything, but I just like the gum.
It was.
I mean,
Wasn't the gum wrapped in a
Yes.
comic?
yeah, but I don't read.
He's allergic.
I know it's short, but you know.
allergic to reading.
get to the gum.
It's short in cartoons, and he can't even be bothered with that. Number 4, Jessica.
He's never eaten a Snickers. He ate his first Snickers last fall because we made him eat one after Mystery Crate.
Tell me he did it with a knife and fork.
No George Costanza.
Number 3.
He tucked a napkin into his bow tie. Number 3, he has a playlist in his car that is supposed to be agreeable for a large swath of people that he plays when someone new is in his car so that he doesn't offend them with any sort of specific music type.
It's called the mutually agreeable playlist.
He's prepared for everything.
It's like ChatGPT.
He's like a little like corporation in a person's body.
I'm starting to miss him.
I know.
Number 2.
He gels his hair before bed.
There's some. Hold on. I gotta step in here. You cannot gel your hair before bed every single day and that be healthy for you. There's something in that gel that's not good for you, and you especially can't do it at night.
Not good for the pillowcase.
Yeah, what's his pillows look like?
Mike, you were not here yesterday, but Jeff Passan called out you as an authority on being able to tell whether people dye their hair or not. Like,
and he was one that I got famously wrong. The only time I've ever been wrong on this.
Was Passan? You thought Passan dyed his hair?
Yeah.
Why?
Just because it's jet black all the time.
Jet black,
and
dude.
It doesn't seem to change.
Passan's young.
Early 40s, but it's jet black. There's no gray.
There's nothing on the sideburns either.
I don't have any gray hair.
You have some in your
my beard. Yeah, but if I shaved it, you would know. Like my
That's
hair.
true, and you're old as fuck.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is that a gray?
What is that?
Number 1.
Oh my God.
This one is obvious. We all know what number 1 is. He uses his stove as his alarm clock.
Mm-hmm.
Time to think fast. Is this a real or fake podcast?
It's a game that is quite literally sweeping the nation. I have not had such good feedback on something that we've created like this maybe since the musical. And we're going to play Real or Fake Podcast with Andrew Hawkins and the host of Pablo Torre Finds Out, Pablo Torre. Pablo, let's begin with you. Let's see if you can find out if this is a real or fake podcast. Talk That Talk with Jerome Williams.
The Junkyard Dog?
The Junkyard
Dog?
JYD. Talk That Talk.
I'm going to go fake because you would have to work in the Junkyard Dog into the title if it was a real podcast.
I should have thought about that. It is indeed a fake podcast. But Talk That Talk is a good name.
That's a great name.
Yeah. We kick it over to Hawk. False start with Eugene Monroe.
False start. Okay. I'm going to go fake.
That is fake.
Okay, good.
Wait, is that the Eugene Monroe who's also an advocate for weed
Yes.
in the NFL? Okay.
Yeah.
False start.
But I also think he led the league in false starts.
No.
And I don't think he would name his podcast.
Yeah, typically that's like a pain point for players. You don't get that level of lean in.
We kick it over to Pablo. Deuced is Wild with Eric Burns and Will Clark.
Oh, my God.
Deuced is Wild with Eric Burns and Will Clark.
Talking about beer league legend Eric Burns. Deuced is Wild. Will Clark, the guy who owed like millions of dollars while playing on. Anyway, that's a separate.
Different eras, yeah.
Okay, yeah, different eras, right? I'm gonna go. That's a fake podcast.
That is a real podcast. Deuce is Wild with Eric Burns and Will Clark. I could not believe it.
They do. Okay, I have to find out about that. Actually,
I would love to get the platform as well. You got to add that to it. Give me the platform as well, because that will be able to mirror up the name to the platform. Like, yeah, that's definitely something that company would call.
One of the
podcast.
fake ones that we had was just available on Apple with Michael Beasley. And it was very believable.
Wherever you get your
I'm
podcast.
saving that one in the holster. Let It Fly with Kyle Bowler. Hawk, is that a real podcast? Let It Fly with Kyle Bowler.
He did throw it over a goalpost.
I could do that, by the way.
He was on his knee from the 50-yard line. And Billick said that that's the reason that they were going to keep winning Super Bowls, because Kyle Bowler could throw it through the goalpost from his knees.
Can you imagine?
From the 50-yard line.
That feels believable because players think everyone everyone knows I Let It Fly, so we're going to name it that. I'm going to go with fake though.
That is indeed fake.
Okay, I haven't seen a Kyle Bowler podcast.
Last final round here. Pablo, Hammered to Left with Lance Berkman. Hammered to Left with Lance Berkman.
Houston Astro great Lance Berkman.
Jesus.
so specific.
Hammered to Left could be Johnny Manziel's podcast too. Be a good one.
I don't want to tell you the host I was workshopping before.
I'm gonna go that is real.
It's fake. I just admitted to workshopping a previous one that would have been insensitive.
Berkman was a lefty.
And finally, Hawk, Journeyman with Andrew Hawkins.
Oh, that's a tough one.
Oh, no.
Terribly named podcast number one.
No, not as bad as False Start.
Before I give my answer, I will also say yesterday had a lot more Ebonics because I did see the clip.
Say it with your chest with John Henderson and Albert Haynes. Right?
I could pick the fake every time because I felt like you were on Rap Genius picking out podcasts.
I said what I said with Rod Strickland.
Yeah.
Don't
start nothing, won't be nothing.
2 days ago, I think.
With Horace Grant, I'm like, okay, these aren't.
Hey, wait just a minute.
And Chris is like, yo, that's such a good one. That is what they would call it.
Watch out there now.
This is a real podcast.
What we would call it.
It's a real podcast. Season 2 coming. We'll get back to that.
Thank you for playing. Is that a real podcast or fake?
Wow.
Pablo Torre finds out
Plausibly.
is a real podcast that does real journalism. Don Van Natta is not someone that sports leagues want sniffing around their stuff, and Don Van Natta has now done some more reporting on Pablo Torre's report, and the ESPN headline today is sources, NFLPA, NFL agreed to keep collusion findings secret. Pablo, your initial story, while a big story, did not resonate the way that I wanted to, and Mike Florio's accusation is that the media is partnered with the NFL and either downplayed the story or ignored the story. This now makes it so that I believe this story's about to get a lot larger, at least in part, because now you've got the attention of the players saying, my union did what? So explain to me what you saw in this reporting and what it means.
Yeah, so Don Van Natta is obviously one of the great investigative journalists who has ever lived. And Kalen Collar, who worked with him on this story, is also an excellent reporter. And so it has been interesting and amusing to see the floodgates open on delay. In order of the things you reference, right? Like Florio having that theory, I have a bit more of an Occam's razor theory, which is simply that people aren't exactly eager to co-sign investigative independent journalism when it also jeopardizes the places they get their sourcing from, their information, the way they eat. Maybe that's a separate but very similar way to the way that Florio put it. But the fact that Don has entered the fray has been incredibly, I would say, both predictable because the story is real, and also welcome because this is what I was hoping would happen when you lay out a roadmap in a 50-minute episode around a 61-page document that had never been released before. And so when Don says, by the way, there are a couple of amazing details in this, by the way, that just make this something that obviously is enormous. One of those details is that they discovered what I had alluded to, which is that there was an actual confidentiality agreement signed between leaders of the NFL and the NFLPA to suppress the document that I published. So there's an actual binding legal document that my episode, essentially sort of like broke open because now everyone, according to this reporting, and I want to quote Don here because I just don't want to smell my own farts, quote, the confidentiality agreement kept the details of Droney's finding, that's the arbiter, his finding from the players until the Pablo Torre Finds Out podcast published the full arbitrator's report on June 24th. And then it goes on to discuss that this created a stir among the players. And to me, the next step in all of this, Dan, is like, what do the players think? What are they going to do about it?
What should they think? What should they think?
Well, another detail that was reported by Don that happened literally this week, I think puts to rest any ambiguity. Because the NFLPA under Lloyd Howell, the executive director, who's at the center of the story we reported, has decided 6 months after he got the ruling to appeal the ruling. So just keep in mind everything that's happening here. So they suppress the ruling. I report the ruling. There's radio silence. Don Van Natta starts calling around, and the NFLPA says, actually, we're going to appeal the ruling. There's very important things in here. It is, as possible, a clear indication that they messed this up that you could get. They are appealing the ruling that they tried to bury because they realize how bad a look it is that they never did anything with it.
Well, I've got follow-up questions here, but does this tie into the NFL now wanting $12 million in lawyer damages and fees because they're appealing a ruling that they agreed to keep confidential and not appeal?
Yes. So the NFL had an agreement, again, a confidential agreement, that we're not going to do anything with this. It's going to be suppressed. The NFLPA suddenly now, because of this public pressure, is saying, actually, we got to do something about this. Sorry, guys. And the NFL is saying in response, well, then you owe us legal fees. $12 million because our whole deal has been shattered. Now, of course, there is fine legal print that Florio has been reporting on Pro Football Talk about whether that's actually plausible that they would get the $12 million. But now we're in the realm of a more familiar landscape of NFL versus NFLPA saber rattling. Frankly, this reporting has pushed the NFLPA to behave finally like a union again. And that is as indicting as anything you could argue that we reported at all.
That's what I was saying, that I would be, if I was a member of this union, I would be unbelievably mad and asking all sorts of questions. So answer this for me, Pablo. What was the NFLPA's incentive in agreeing to keep all of that private?
So in the episode, we posit a number of theories that are validated and reported. And one of them is that J.C. Tretter, who was the former president of the NFLPA as a player, who became the chief strategy officer, who handpicked Lloyd Howell to be the executive director, was caught in those documents, in the discovery, the expedited discovery, the texts, the emails, the transcripts, to be trashing Russell Wilson and to be blaming him for not getting the full guaranteed contract that the NFLPA wanted. And instead, what happened was, it was revealed that the owners were found to have been in communication with each other and with the NFL around an attempt to prevent full guarantees from being given out. But what J.C. Tretter said was used against the NFLPA in that arbitration proceeding. And so what does that mean? It means that J.C. Tretter, who has designs, we also report, to be the head of the union. And Dan, this is a job that's only been held by a handful of people, literally. It's like Gene Upshaw and D. Smith and Lloyd Howell, right? There's a short list of guys, a couple other names on there. It's a long-term forever job that J.C. Tretter wanted. He wanted to suppress this whole thing because that made him look bad. That's one part of it. The other part, this whole thing started because of the DeMaurice Smith regime, which was way more adversarial with the league. Lloyd Howell was the go-along-to-get-along guy, a corporate executive who was meant to be friendly, sort of restart relations with the NFL. So this was a win, in our view, in my view, in Florio's view, for the previous regime of the union, not the current one, which came in with a whole different strategy. So it wasn't a win for them. And then I think third and most generously, they thought that if we keep this quiet and we do this thing with the NFL, confidentiality agreement, of course, now known, then this is going to pay off for the union long term. The problem, of course, is that third most generous theory is also now repudiated by the fact that they just appealed the bleeping ruling. So already, I just don't see any ground for this regime to stand on, even hypothetically, which is also kind of mind-blowing.
So take me through how average football players supposed to feel if your original theory is right, which is this was kept confidential because one of the people representing the players didn't want to look bad to the players or to anybody. So he ceases to represent the players and is now just representing himself.
It is a breach of, frankly, fiduciary duty. You are a union. Your job in a legal, professional, ethical sense is to represent your constituents, your players. And here you have one example, a concrete example, among others, of self-interest personally overriding collective self-interest, right? And so this is unfortunately something that unions in America, and particularly this one in the NFL, have been battling for decades. But in this case, you have it so crystal clear, 4K quality documented that I think if you're a player, frankly, if you're a player who signed a new deal in 2021 when all this stuff was happening, this is about the offseason of 2021, where guys getting guarantees, the answer turns out was no. Full guarantees, no one got them. They should be contemplating what is our legal recourse. I've talked to lawyers now who are wondering, when is the next shoe to drop going to be a lawsuit? When will... I mean, I don't want to get ahead of myself here because we're still reporting the story.
Justin Herbert could sue the league, could sue the union, could he not?
Justin Herbert, who was named in the text exchange between Michael Bidwill and Dean Spanos, the owner of the Chargers, Bidwill, the Cardinals owner, in which they are basically celebrating how they didn't give Kyler Murray full guarantees, which then helps Dean Spanos and the Chargers to not give Justin Herbert the full guarantees. I would imagine that guy logically would have a bone to pick, especially Dan. The extra layer of crazy on all of this is that those players that we've been naming, and this is Lamar Jackson, Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray, and Justin Herbert, the 4 big stars named in this thing, they were never told or shown what was in the document that was about their livelihoods until I published it. They had never heard it. The union had never told them. They had never shown them. And so there is actively, I think, a would-be grievance if they choose to pursue it. But also, clearly, the union is behind the scenes on fire right now in every figurative sense. And I think everyone's running around trying to cover their own ass.
It would make sense. I pointed out yesterday that Peyton Manning's original contract had 0 guaranteed dollars in it. Brock Purdy's has 70% guaranteed dollars in it. And because of this, I've never seen Andrew Hawkins take more notes, and I don't think he's taking notes because he has any questions for Pablo Torre. I think it's because he's got questions for his friends and colleagues and union representatives. I see him taking a lot of notes here, but messy, I don't think he wants to ask any questions here. I think he might have questions for others, though.
I welcome Andrew's thoughtful silence. Hawk's thoughtful note-taking silently is meaningful just because all I actually want, Dan, is for players to hear this, to see the reporting, to make a judgment for themselves. Again, I am not here to say, trust me, I got this, period. I'm saying, look at the document I published. Look at the interviews we did. Look at the reporting. Now look at Don Van Natta. Look at Kalen Collar. Look at ESPN wading into the waters. Why is this happening? Just ask yourself, why is this happening? And consider what it costs. And by the way, as I believe Hawk is aware, there is a CBA renegotiation coming up in 2030. And those things start years before, right? The setting of the table, the gaining of leverage, the angling in the public for what to do and how to win what the NFL owners are very loath to give, which is a percentage point of power, right? That process, if time keeps on wearing on here, the players are actively losing money by not dealing with this because it feels inevitable that they're going to have to.
What do you believe will be the end point on this? And in your wildest dreams, the most seismic of scenarios that results from your reporting is blank?
I think inevitably there'll be a change in leadership at the NFLPA. I just think that the smoke is too obvious.
Wow. So you think that Lloyd Howell his job will be affected by your reporting?
You're going for that Peabody, huh?
Oh, I'm not. By the way, this is a pretty warm to kind of lukewarm take. I think that's obvious at this point.
The Peabody?
All of it. All of it. No, look, Lloyd Howell, man, separately, and we haven't even gotten into this part, there's a separate investigation into this whole other business that the NFLPA is embroiled in, which is called the One Team sort of enterprise. This is the Tony Clark thing with the MLBPA and all that stuff. Lloyd Howell is under FBI investigation right now for a thing that I believe is actually less interesting than what we're talking about right now. That's how this sort of was set up, that was preceding my reporting. So I think Lloyd Howell inevitably cannot sustainably be doing this job. I think that J.C. Treader, who would have been the successor, by the way, in a very interesting sequence of events, right? Lloyd Howell has to be ousted. Who is the interim executive director? The logical successor might be the guy who installed Lloyd Howell with the title that had never before existed in the union of Chief Strategy Officer, who's kind of the guy who's been sliding in the background, but we named it in our reporting. J.C. Treader, former Cleveland Browns center, right? That guy, the question is, would the players install him if they see everything that we have reported? And if it's not him, then the question is, who then next? And simultaneous to all of that is the fact that this 61-page document has the NFL owner's nightmare, right? 8 owners, discovery, texts, emails, transcript, Roger Goodell caught on emails with his chief, by the way, his chief lawyer. Then, I will say this without too much of a spiking of the football here, who then later, if you look at the timeline, resigned from his job. This is Jeff Pash, the general counsel, the famous general counsel for the NFL, stepped down, resigned after internally we know this arbitration ruling proceeding was happening in which he was caught on email with Roger Goodell, effectively doing the thing that gave the union the ammo should they choose to use it to get leverage against the NFL. Dan, this is, I mean, when I say that this goes all the way to the top, I mean the NFL itself. When I kind of tongue-in-cheekly observed when I was with you last time, the NFL is monitoring the coverage of this story, what I say about this stuff. That is not abstract. I can tell you without being too smelling my own farts about this. The stuff I've reported has been consumed by senior vice presidents in the league office dozens upon dozens of times. I'm talking about refreshes. I'm talking about links being sent. I'm talking about conversations behind the scenes. This is something that is at the highest levels of the most important popular sport in America. And now we're seeing it on delay 15 days later. All of it is leaking out.
Did you answer my question about what the most seismic of the scenarios are? Because you're saying it's pretty, you're saying just their leadership being blown out at the union. You're assuming that that's going to be so. So in the wildest of circumstances where this story catches fire and all league partners are forced to report on it, what is the most seismic of hypothetical results here?
I will phrase it more journalistically responsibly, but if I was running the union and I got this ruling in which Roger Goodell was caught saying this stuff in coordination with the owners, the 8 owners who were named in this and others, one might presume, I would be calling for Roger Goodell's job. Now, will that happen in real time? I doubt that, but that is actively what the leverage that the union might have had here is. They could have gone to Capitol Hill. They could have called for hearings. They could have made an enormous public display of look at what we're dealing with heading into our next CBA, is that the leadership of the NFL itself is doing this stuff. And so I'm not predicting. I'm merely saying that this is actually concretely in the document part of the conversation.
Wow. Pablo, first of all, you speak English beautifully. Where'd you learn that? I got people in this room that can't speak English as well as you can. Secondly, I'm kind of disgusted at our recent text exchanges, which is just us bartering. You ask me for contacts to help you find stuff out, and I'm just constantly pitching you stuff to find out. So I'm curious, like, a lot of your friendships have devolved into people just treating you like ChatGPT, right? And say, hey, find out about this, right?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I did an episode. The episode I loved, by the way, that we just did on Tuesday was about competitive bird watching. And I think it's one of our greatest episodes you've ever done. And nobody gives a shit. And so I am.
That's true. I skipped that one.
What?
I skipped
it. Oh my God. It's so good.
Nah, make me care about bird watching.
It has blowjobs, jizz, banging. It has a chase for 10,000 birds with a guy holding a Wilt Chamberlain like sign that says 10,000 on it in a jungle. It has,
and that's all just a text message exchange between Pablo and Mike. That's,
yeah.
We didn't even get into the bird watching yet.
It's so good in a real way, but no one cares. And so I've been on Twitter bartering, to Mike's point, and I'm like saying, everyone's saying, can you investigate Jeffrey Epstein? And I'm like, what about these birds though? and so I've said, if everybody watches the bird watching episode on YouTube, I will investigate Jeffrey Epstein.
So
if that's what it takes.
To the roof.
If that's what it takes.
What does everybody mean? Earth? If everyone on Earth watches it?
7.6 billion listens later.
That could be someone else's beat. Find out about the Chris Paul Lakers trade.
Oh, basketball reasons. Yeah, I've been looking into that one. I've been sniffing around that one. But the birds. We want to talk about a scandal.
Man.
10,000 birds.
As a hawk, I'm interested.
Absolutely.
We don't want to talk about your bird watching episode. Pablo Torre finds out, though, if you want more information about all of his curiosities, it is exceptionally popular. Thank you, Pablo. Good seeing you. Good talking to you. Take care.
Thank you, guys. And Mike, I'll text you later.
What do you guys think about Deion Sanders saying that college football needs a salary cap?
I mean, it is kind of heading that way. Curious, I'm a little worried about Deion, to be honest. He stepped away for a little bit this offseason for health reasons, and I saw Big 12 Media Day, and he was drenched in sweat, while no one else on the dais was. So I was watching that. I was a little concerned for Deion. He's had some health issues that he's kept pretty private. We know about the near foot amputation, but there's a lot of stuff going on in the NCAA, and this is an organization that flatly does not win in court. Does not win, which is why they've pivoted to Supreme Court senators. Just give us full autonomy because we're not going to win. And even now it's being challenged. I know Castellanos has challenged something. The NCAA doesn't know how to read a room. That's never been their strength. This week, the expectation is this week or next that they're going to come down with an announcement in all likelihood to expand March Madness to 70-plus teams. No one wants this. No one wants this. The only people that want this are the power conferences so they can make more money. At what point do you continue alienating your audience? No one even likes the expanded field right now. First four, not something that is hugely interesting. It's one of the few things that they got right in terms of the perfect number. I'm really curious to see when they do get granted this, because in hiring Charlie Baker, they knew exactly what they were going to do. They were going to back channel and politic their way to a win. And it's not even like they're doing the work. In fact, their most recent plan is we'll let the big conferences self-govern. Huh? You're going to let the Big Ten and SEC make the rules for the Big Ten and the SEC while you just collect the money because you organize all the non-revenue sports?
Yes, is the answer to your question. Greed is going to win at every turn. There is no amount of dilution that will get in the way of the greed. They will continue to be greedy at every turn, grab as much as they can, and it will be several times beyond where the complaints are on all the dilution before they stop being people who just chase the money and the greed. They are not going to show moderation. They are not going to cut any of these things back. As long as the television dollars keep increasing, they will continue to dilute product long past the complaints about diluted product.
So you salary cap, conceivably, you salary cap, does that cap a player's ability to make income on their name, image, and likeness outside of the cap? Mm-hmm. You can have an endorsement deal. I know that Jeremiah Smith just signed an endorsement deal with Adidas. Does that count for the cap? I know that the school's going to have the rev share, but as we've even seen with executive orders, these things are going to get challenged. Even their autonomy is going to get challenged. And if I may, this is a bipartisan issue. Hate for the NCAA reaches across the aisle. There are plenty of conservative judges that have ruled against the NCAA, more so even than the progressive ones. So I don't really know how this is going to work for the NCAA, but what confounds me, Dan, is the supreme confidence and assertion that we're just headed here. It's going to be rev share. There's going to be some sort of cap. We'll figure out what we do with the non-revenue sports. There'll be kickbacks along the way. There's going to be an NIL clearinghouse. The conferences are going to govern themselves. This machine keeps moving. And if there's ever been a time for college athletics to be paused, for everybody to figure this bleep out, it's right now.
The tough part is it seems like the silent fight is that you're trying to keep the players from being employees. And that is pretty much the thing that is going to continue to expand all the things that Deion and everyone's complaints are about. They have too much power. There's too much money. It just keeps going up. We need a cap. It's because they're going to do everything in their power not to call them employees. Right now, they are essentially 1099s, contractors, year-to-year basis, which should prevent multi-year contracts, which should prevent them telling you, quote-unquote, how to do the services you're being paid for. And they're trying to dance around that because what comes with that, like you know, is a CBA. What comes with that is restriction. What comes with that is probably a lot of lawsuits from players and former players that now put you on the hook for injuries that have typically gone to the NFL and or nobody cared about because no one goes back and sues the university because my back is messed up for forever for those 4 years, or my ankles are messed up, or my joints, or concussions. And they're trying in every sense of their power to make it to where the public is going to yell, the players have too much power, because in that version of it, it makes it a little bit easier of a process to say, hey, it's not us, it's them. They want it. We just want them to be able to do what they want. We're finally getting it right. That's not what the actual sentiment is.
Let me rewind some of this, though. The messenger on this is Dion. It is not surprising that Dion would want limits on the power of others. Dion is about Dion at every turn, and Colorado cannot compete with Texas and Ohio State when it comes to money. So Dion wants a cap. More interesting to me is the idea of a cap in general. Fans love a cap. Athletes would have no reason to love a cap. The baseball salaries are what they are, at least in part because there's not a cap because the owners can't control themselves and they need a salary cap to control themselves because you see what happens when they collude and can't control themselves. Deshaun Watson gets guaranteed money because someone's desperate for a quarterback, and then all of a sudden you get everything we've been talking about today. I don't think there should be salary caps. I understand why there are salary caps. The reason? The owners cannot control themselves. If Jerry Jones needs a quarterback, he's going to outspend everyone else for a quarterback if you don't have a salary cap. And that's the reason it exists. It's not for fairness. It's not for any other reason other than the owners want fixed costs. Like, you don't understand the government advantages that these leagues have with their monopolies when they can sit there and limit capitalism. They can limit that these people who are more valuable than the average person can have fixed costs in a draft and not have choices about where they work when they have more choices than the average employee anywhere in employment under normal circumstances that don't have limits. But so that you understand why the salary cap exists, it's twofold. One, the owners can't control themselves, and two, the owners know how to always beat the players when it comes to collectively bargained partnerships because they can do things like what we've been talking about for 2 hours here, where you get the confidentiality agreement from the head of the players union instead of the players union getting all of the information that they need.
All too often, it's not just sports. It's capitalism for me, but not necessarily for the labor force, which I find curious. Danny White, who I think is one of the more bright administrators in the sport, did a great job with UCF, is now at Tennessee. He spoke to Yahoo Sports, and he's really one of the first administrators to invoke CBAs, collective bargaining agreement, which many schools may think opens up a can of worms. But this is what he told Yahoo Sports. In his model, college athletics would in fact not be employees of their schools, but a structure that calls for the creation of a national employment organization that partners with a players association, perhaps one already formed in the professional leagues. That's interesting, especially since the main revenue generator is football, and the NFL and its PA has a free minor league system. Do they actually contribute something to the pot? That's something interesting. Modernize and improved ecosystem for football and men's basketball players, the two main revenue sports. Collective bargaining and employment status shouldn't be seen as negative terms. That's something he's going to run up against a lot of opposition from fellow administrators. I think there's a lot of people who think the same way that I do. We can go another 3 or 5 or even 10 years of this difficult environment, or we can accept the reality and fix it right now. 10 years, I think we're all going private equity firms and Super League anyways, Hawk.
I mean, it's going to have to separate because that's the other part of the cap where the other reason is teams and markets and franchises who might not have the same access to funds have to compete against each other, and it's just naturally harder, even in the open market outside of sports. Think about any industry, the media industry. If said media company has way more money to pay talent, they'll always get the highest paid, and the guys and girls that bring in the most amount of money versus a smaller media company because we don't have the amount of money to pay the salaries that the big guys have, right? Are we competing against each other? I guess indirectly, but they're in these leagues, There's a literal competition against each other. And so there has to be a separation between the people who have and the people that don't.
Mike, do you have any information whatsoever on why it is that Wisconsin is suing the University of Miami over Xavier Lucas?
So Wisconsin, number one, needs to get their own house in order because they have recruiting violations that they need to worry about. And Big Ten has already sent out a press release whilst doing nothing. I think this is more about tone setting and trying it just in a private world, in a civil suit. I don't see a scenario ever in which Xavier Lucas leaves the University of Miami. I do know that for all their barking, and they've done a lot of barking, which is also hypocritical because how'd you get one of your better volleyball players from the University of Miami, Wisconsin?
Are you covering your mouth right now? What happened?
Well,
you didn't want people to hear that?
But he wanted to show.
Nobody would know who
there
it
was
is.
an awesome volleyball player
Did you
that
happen to know?
I know that we had an awesome volleyball player that found its way to their way to Wisconsin.
Hold on a second.
Oh my God, he knows. He happens to know. Come everyone, come and listen. Happens to know. He happens to know. Well informed.
Obviously, you don't want to be sued ever, but I feel pretty good already with the precedent just with this Xavier Lucas case, and you can Google it for yourself, that this one's kind of been done and dusted. I think this is more about trying to establish a precedent because
What happened?
What happened is the argument is Wisconsin argues that they had a contract with the player that out of the other side of their mouth says we don't have contracts with our players because they're not employees. It's weird because you're trying to enforce language that goes against your greater argument.
Right. He happens to know.
They want these things to be totally binding.
Right.
Which I guess you can understand.
Yeah.
There was another AD, I forget the name. Oh, it was the Ohio State athletic director that said, we want a real market in the transfer market. Basically, we want to know what everybody is offering, so we can't be negotiated with without seeing the number.
Right.
You can understand that. It is fair. This person's telling me a number.
That's advantageous for the university for sure.
Right. So are we going to do this with the ADs and the coaches? Have some sort of portal where we see exactly what the offer is from another school, or are we going to ruin what is a negotiation tactic across America?
Do you mind pausing?
2 rules.
Do you mind pausing just so that Roy has enough room to do that?
Oh my God, he knows.
Can you just leave occasional pauses around the happens to know so that Roy can keep hearing something that appears to be tickling Tony? Like every time Tony.
Oh my God, he knows.
Well, the thing that I'm noticing every time is that Chris did that in his kitchen while not trying to not be heard by his wife. Who
It was embarrassing. The raw cut of that file. I should grab that.
The thing that the reason I'm laughing every time is that Roy plays it, and I'm imagining Chris bent over like behind the door under the sink, trying to hide the echoing of his voice from his wife.
So wise.
Basically, what Wisconsin is trying to argue is if you have some kind of NIL deal, which also blows up their pay-for-play rules because you're not technically supposed to have these things. If you have a deal with us, you shouldn't be allowed to change your mind and say, not for me, I want to go elsewhere. You can't break this. But they're also not employees. They're trying to enforce employee rules for people that aren't actually
that are
employed.
1099 contracts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Come everyone, come and listen.
He was in his kitchen on his hands and knees. He could smell the dish rag hiding from his wife.
He happens to know? Great Scott, he happens to know. He happens to know. Gather everyone. Get the children. He happens to know. So wise.